From Boca Raton, Florida, this is Behind the Bima. On this week's episode, hosts Rabbi Ephraim Goldberg, Rabbi Josh Broide, and Rabbi Philip Moskowitz are joined by political commentator and author Mark Levin. Levin speaks about his powerful trip to Israel, shares his thoughts on how we can best defend our homeland, and explains the dire situation in America. All this and more Behind the Bima.
We are back behind the Bima, our latest episode. I'm honored and overjoyed to be joined by my dear friend and colleague, Rabbi Josh Broide. Rabbi Broide, how are you?
You're back.
Broide?
This is a big show tonight.
Big show tonight. Mark Levin, the great one, and disagree with his politics. Certainly he can be very strong on TV, but he's got a mic and he's got a lot of people listening, and he's using that mic to stand up for the Jewish people in this time. That's what matters to us. And it doesn't mean that other things don't matter, but that's what we're focused on. I actually wrote my article last week. Did I mention this on last week's show about how, in my opinion, if your house is on fire, the fireman comes to rescue. If someone's chasing you to kill you and a policeman steps in to save you, you don't say, 1 second, are you Republican or Democrat? You don't tell the fireman, what's your view on this thing, that thing, the other thing? You say, you want to save me? You're stepping in to help me? All I'm filled with is gratitude. So I think right now, the Jewish people are in the targets of people who hate us in Israel and around the world, the people stepping up for us. Now is not a time that we're focused or care about, what political party they're part of or whether we agree with every part of their views, their lifestyle. We're grateful for the people who are speaking up and standing up because we need it now as much as ever.
And we are so proud of his statements. I've never seen someone more excited on national television. It's still being passed around. People are so excited for his excitement and just getting very passionate for what's going on in Israel and in the United States.
Absolutely. It was kind of cool.
Yeah.
We record with him in this conversation. He's in his studio.
Yeah.
There's millions of people watching. Here he is, like with us. It's amazing. First talking to him behind in the green room, which got me thinking, Rabbi Broide. Like Mark Levin and some of the other very famous people we speak to, there's a green room. For those who don't know, the green room, they do hair, makeup, they get you ready. And before you go perform, before you go on stage, before you come out, first you're in the green room. So you mentioned to me the other day that at your house, when it comes to Shabbos meals, you have a green room.
I do have a green room. Listen, I was just thinking that, Yishai Rebo, so your office served, I guess, in some way as a green room right before he came out. You have a couple of refreshments.
I want you to know something. I'm glad you mentioned that because, first of all, Lag BaOmer coming up, Motzei Shabbos Sunday. I can't wait to get rid of so much of this, like to trim. But I also music, the role of music in my life. I know what music means to you. We're mourning the students of Rabbi Akiva. One of the ways that we do that is by not listening to music, and it matters. It makes a difference. We'll come back to your green room in one moment, but the no music, I don't know. It really affects me. So after we had those Rebo concerts, I was just listening around the clock to the soundtrack from those concerts, to Rebo in general. That silence, that absence of music, it changes your mood. There really is a sadness. It's somber. So one thing that's not appreciated, I didn't put this video anywhere because I didn't feel it was my right. It was sort of a private moment of his, even though I have a video. When he was coming out of my office, out of that green room to go on stage, before he went out, he closed his eyes. He was saying to him he was davening. That was amazing to me. Nobody saw. He didn't know I was behind him. In fact, he was so lost in it that they were calling him Yishai. Like it was like that moment where the music's playing, lights come out. I had to tap him on the shoulder, like it's time. But I was so blown away by that. No matter how talented you are, no matter your skill, no matter how many times you've done it, you got to say, Hashem, please help me. Let it be successful. Let it go smoothly. Let it go well. Because all those talents, they're on loan. They're not part of our permanent collection. And God has given them to us, and he could take them away any moment. You were just telling me about a documentary about one of the musicians that you love. We don't mention his name, but had some issues with vocal cords and a whole illustrious career, Hall of Fame, rock and roll career. But these talents, they're on loan from God.
Yeah.
And he could take them away any moment.
Yeah. And it is very scary. And I think, having music is a gift. And when it's taken away from us for any significant amount of time, you definitely feel it. Life is different, but it doesn't stop playing in my head. So I don't know how to turn that off.
When did you connect to music in this way? Because since I've known you, you play the drums, now you taught yourself the guitar. It's not just that you love music, listen to music, know a lot of music. There's music always playing in your head. If you're sitting next to listeners, I want them to know, if you're sitting next to Rabbi Broide at a meeting, sitting next to Rabbi Broide sometimes on the Bima, right? It's long time, it's arduous, it could get a little boring, tedious. Rabbi Broide starts tapping. I always
what song?
We're like at a meeting and he starts tapping. I go, what song? And you playing a song in your head.
I think it was driving Jeffrey crazy today. But
Were you playing a song today?
what do you know? I was playing. I went through about a 4-hour set today.
We had our long planning meetings, which were amazing. But were you tapping?
Yeah, I was tapping away.
So
It's funny because like, you don't. That's the
music?
best. That's the part. You don't plan it. It just it's there. It's constantly playing right now. It's I can't explain it, but
You have playlists? How does the music play?
No. You hear
You're
it.
driving, you're sitting,
You
you're
hear-
talking, you're
No,
having
when I'm driving, I'll put music on. But I'm saying when I don't have music,
when you're falling asleep at
I
night.
hear it. Yeah, there's always music. There's always music.
What music is it?
It's
Playlist?
weird, and then I feel compelled to play along with it. That's what's so strange. And it's literally like it's not faster or slower. I'm playing in time with the song that I'm hearing in my head. It's great. I love it. I love music. I love it.
What
I can't
determines
explain.
what song jumps into your head? Is there a
That
playlist?
must be a Kodesh Baruch Hu because I don't know. It doesn't. I don't know. I don't know. And maybe it's the mood I'm in. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to get into a certain mood. Maybe I'm
Music means more to
struggling with
you
something.
than
Yeah.
almost anyone I know. The role of
Yeah.
music in your life, music in your moods, music in emotion, music in connection.
It's strange. I can tell you, and I know a lot of songs. I could probably name 1,000 songs right now. I could tell you the first time I ever heard every song. When I hear a song for the first time, when I hear a song playing, it brings me back to the first time I heard it.
Wow.
It's strange. It's like bang.
Jewish
I know
music?
exactly.
Jewish music too?
Yeah, almost anything. Yeah, there's not a long list, but yeah.
Achenu.
Yeah, most of those songs were just NCSY on a Motzei Shabbos, Kumsitz
Right.
or something. But some of the bigger ones, like a Meheira, I will never forget. I was in 6th grade. That song just like took me to a whole different place. I never
Wow.
heard a song like that. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the green room. So
Yeah,
now that Yishai Riba's got a green room, your rock and roll stars have green rooms. What's your green room?
So I think there's two. There's probably. I'm going to ask you why do rock stars or celebrities, why do they have a green room? What is that for?
Because they're not ready to come. They want to make an entrance. They're not ready to come out.
They're not ready. You got to get in the zone. You got to get in the zone. And I'm telling you, even though we just took this test to try and figure out our personalities, which I don't think it got 100% right, because I think I'm much more of an introvert than an extrovert. But I guess the way I answered the questions, it came out that I'm completely like an extrovert, which I don't feel.
For just let people know, for our staff meeting and planning meeting, sort of our professional advancement, we all took personality tests to better understand ourselves and how we interact with each other. So yeah.
So I after a long morning in shul, you get home, let's say around 12. Lunch is always called for 12:30. So I need to be in the green room. Call. But it's not only that I'll come out when the guests start showing up. Just let me know when everyone's seated. Let me
know. You're having 3 families for lunch.
Yes.
1 or 2 of them are there.
Yeah.
The rule in your house is you're in your green room. I don't come out till everyone's seated.
Simone is entertaining until everyone is there and seated. And when she comes and gets me, I ask the same question, which does annoy her. I say, is the grape juice poured? I don't want to have to wait.
So the green room.
I need to get in the zone. It's not. I don't know about you. I grew up. My Shabbos meals were 20 minutes. We got to the meal, we ate, and me and my sister, we did our own thing, and that was it. Here, it's a 3.5 hour, 4-hour event. I gotta be physically and mentally prepared for this.
Marathon. It's a marathon.
It's a marathon.
A triathlon. It's an Ironman.
Yeah, I hear my friends. Oh, I got to get to the 3:00 mincha. 3:00 mincha. I'm getting to the first course at the 3:00 mark.
So therefore,
I can't
build up the endurance to get through that marathon.
I gotta literally
You're
physically
in the green room,
prepare.
you get in the zone.
And someone will say,
What do you
"Oh,
do
I
in the
can't."
green room? You're reading.
No. I am. I'm listening.
Playing music.
Yeah, I'm listening to music in my head. That's what I'm doing. I'm not
Music in
reading. I can't. I don't. It's dark. The lights are off, and I'm just there, and I'm just in my own place. But people might say, "Oh, why don't you come out? It's not nice. Your guests are there." But I feel like I have a limited amount of things I could possibly talk about. This is what happens. That's why also I don't like walking home with guests, because then I feel like if I'm walking home with you, then I've used up all that material, whatever I'm going to talk about at the meal. And if there's, let's say one guest shows up late, and now I just spoke to 2 guests for half hour, I'm out of material.
Wow.
There's a lot that goes into these meals.
A lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
You have in your head, of course, it's Shabbos, so you can't play. Do you have a walk-in song? When you come out of the green room in your head,
I said it was like Rocky.
is it Rocky? Is that what you come into?
No, it depends. It depends what I was, listening
You have a
to.
different walk-in song. You're not like the closer on a baseball team.
Can I tell you what's stranger about this conversation? See, most of the people listening right now, I wonder, maybe I'm not the one that's doing something strange. Maybe everyone's doing that. How do you know everyone else isn't doing the same thing?
It's possible you just created shalom bias problems across the world. And everybody Shabbos is going to say, "I'll be in the green room. Let me know when the guests are here seated, and the grape juice is poured."
Yeah. Because I got to be on, because this is the rule. Josh, you've got to be on. I know you had a long morning. You've been 3 hours at shul. You've been teaching classes. You're doing your thing. You got to give me 100%. Okay. I'm like, I'll give you 100%. I just need to prepare. I'm not that good I can't. You saw me today at the meeting. How many times? Every 10 minutes, not 10 minutes, every 20 minutes, I get up and I got to walk around. I can't stay seated for 4 hours. But you figured
out a system that works for you, which is for me to give 100% and beyond for those 3 hours.
Yeah.
I got the green room, get in the zone. I got to get ready. I got to hold back all my material. I can't waste it on 1 or 2 guests. Be ready. And then when everyone's there seated, grape juice, then take over.
And I'm pretty sure everyone has a good time. Like maybe they were like wondering, where was he? I think people might.
I never heard a complaint yet.
People probably just think that you may be in the bathroom or something. I'm lying down in bed in a dark room listening to my music in my head.
You just launched an entire trend called the homeland green room, the Shabbos Green Room.
The Shabbos Green Room.
All right, we got a great guest tonight. We continue to talk about Israel. We continue to think about what's going on college campuses. We continue to fight. And among the biggest fighters right now for the Jewish people, Mark Levin, known as the Great One, nationally syndicated talk radio host, one of the biggest audiences in America. Do you know how many people listen to him a day? He's got 14 million listeners.
Wow.
14 million. Host of Levin TV, chairman of Landmark Legal Foundation, host of Fox News show Life, Liberty, and Levin, highest rated Fox News TV show on Saturday and Sunday nights, author of 8 consecutive #1 New York Times best-selling books. 8 consecutive #1 New York Times best-selling books.
Does he add behind the Bima now onto that long list of things that he's accomplished?
Yeah. I think he was a little bit more nervous coming on us than his Fox show. I'll be honest with you. I don't know.
It's a big show.
I don't know. His book spent 3 months #1, sold more than 1.5 million copies, inductee in the National Radio Hall of Fame. Maybe are we going to get in with? Is there a National Podcaster Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I'm gonna nominate us. We're gonna go.
And you'll hear from this conversation, proud Jew and increasingly practicing Jew. And really fascinating.
And I think when people just see the image of him, like in the box in his studio, our listeners are gonna be very impressed with us. They're gonna say,
it's an important conversation.
You've done it.
Don't get distracted if there's politics you don't like.
Right.
Focus on how all of us can harness our voice to speak up for the Jewish people in a time that it matters as much as ever. What an honor and privilege to bring to you our conversation with the Great One, Mark Levin. What a great honor it is to be with the Great One himself, Mark Levin, to go behind the Bima together. Thank you. Thank you for giving us some time. Thank you for being such an outspoken, passionate, eloquent spokesperson for Israel, the U.S.-Israel relationship, and on behalf of our people, the Jewish people. Just last week, the monologue you shared on Hannity, let alone on your own show regularly, resonated with so many and gave us a voice as we're frustrated by so much that's going on in this world. And so thank you for everything, and thank you for giving us some time.
Well, first of all, it's a great honor. I want the audience to know that David Milstein, part of the family here, attends your synagogue, and he speaks so highly of you folks, as do I. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. And we Jews are in this together. We're in it with red-blooded, patriotic Americans, which most of us are. And what's happening in our country and happening overseas is so disgusting and so diabolical and so dire that now is not the time to sit back and complain and watch. Now is the time to speak out.
And you do to 14 million people regularly, and we're so grateful for that. Could you share with us to begin with, where does this come from? Your pride in being a Jew, your connection to the land and the people of Israel. Tell us a little bit about your background, your history, that connection, who inspired that passion. Maybe talk about your trips to Israel, your first trip to Israel, your connection to that special land.
Well, my parents, who were not very formally religious, but were very formally Jewish and pro-Israel, and they spoke to us often about this, and it was very, very important. Back then, my parents, they were children of immigrants who came here from Russia, perhaps partly Ukraine, it depends on the time, and they survived their ancestors, the pogroms, as they came here. And instinctively and intuitively, I've always known how grateful I am and our family is for being in such a blessed land like the United States of America, where we can practice our faith, where we can believe what we want to believe, is a tiny, tiny minority in a very big country with a lot of people. That is the exception to the rule. It's the exception to ancient history and modern history, which is why I defend this country as strongly as I can. When it comes to Israel, I was raised as a Reformed Jew. I don't even know what that means, to be perfectly honest with you, but I was raised as a Reformed Jew. Didn't really learn the language. I learned how to read it. I didn't learn what the words meant, so that's kind of weird. And I didn't learn enough history about Judaism, but I would read a lot about the history of Israel on my own, because that's what I do. People say, what do you do for fun? Well, that's what I do. I read. And that's why my Chabad rabbi said, you should have been a rabbi. You would have been great in yeshiva. And so I said, let's not go too far now. Anyway, and it's funny he says that, because my parents, when I was a young kid, I always thought, well, maybe I'd be a rabbi. And then, well, obviously I'm not. It's a lot of work to be a
It's
rabbi.
not too late.
It's not too late. Well, there you are. Anyway, but look, I went to Israel the first time when I was 60. I'm 66. And I don't like flying long distances. And I used to say to my family, look, I know what's there. I know what needs to be defended. I know who needs to be defended. I know this. It's in my heart. It's my soul. It's in my conscience. And so my wife, Julie, said that unless you're there, you're not there. And so when I was 60, we took the whole family. I'm 66 now. We went. And I know exactly what she means. To go there and touch the Western Wall, to touch parts of the old city of David, to walk the paths that our ancestors walked. We went to Hebron, where obviously Abraham and others are buried. We went to places, Judea and Samaria. We went to Shiloh, and you learn so much, and it really connects reality with the Bible, and it really connects reality with what we're up against. And so that's further intensified, or at least informs my belief system. But, God works in wondrous ways. I don't need to tell you guys this. He works in wondrous ways. And for me, he's always planted that seed in me. And if I'm going to have these platforms, radio, TV, books, digital TV, if I don't use these platforms, there's very few of us that have access to millions and millions of people, then who is? And so I feel this is my obligation.
When you went to the Kotel for that first time, I understand that, you passed that kiosk, the Chabad rabbis, they're always eager to put tefillin on anyone that they can. I understand you took advantage of that. Can you tell us about that?
Well, actually, what happened was I went down there with a buddy of mine, Paul Teller. He used to work for Vice President Pence. And I'd never been there, obviously. I've seen it before many times from afar. And this gentleman, this Chabad rabbi, keeps yelling, Mark, come over here, tefillin to us. Who is this guy? Well, he comes from New York, and obviously he's now an Israeli. And I turned my back, I said, that's okay. I talked away, and then I said, wait a minute. If I'm going to do this for the first time, is there really a better place on the face of the earth than right here? And I turned around. I said, Rabbi, yes, let's do that. And Mr. Teller, Paul Teller, had never done it before. He said this. He said, yes, right here. I said, right here, right now. So that was life-changing too. That was really fantastic. And apparently people are taking pictures and putting it on the, I don't know. Yeah.
Now, that was obviously a special moment, putting on tefillin by the Western Wall. but you referenced earlier that you study with a rabbi. Can you explain the genesis of that? Many people are scared to get involved in learning, certainly on a regular basis. What was the genesis of that, and why do you feel so passionately about continuing to explore your Judaism and your heritage?
You know, people go to ancestry.com to figure out who they are. Or sometimes they'll say, you know, I'm a this American, I'm a that American, I'm a this American. So in our community, a Chabad rabbi, and this is a very, very important movement in Judaism. He's a young man, I'd say now he's about 32, but he has the wisdom of somebody who's much older than that. And we got to know him, and he befriended us, and vice versa. And he only lives like a half a mile or a mile away from our house now. And he said to me, what do you want to learn? I said, history. I don't have a good grasp of the earliest history of the Jewish people. He said, done. So we try every Monday. There are exceptions when I'm called into this place to do things, but to have a history lesson and to show you how good and bad it is out there. Don't laugh at me, rabbis. You're going to laugh. We start with the story right before Samuel, and we get to Samuel. And I said, you know, Rabbi Cohen, he's a Kohen, I'm a Levite. So, you know, I'm busy watching him all the time. So I said, do you realize after all these years in Reform Center, I didn't know who Samuel was. How can you go to synagogue for 20 years and not know who Samuel is? And so, you know, I love history to begin with, but our history is particularly important. And that's how it started. That's how it continues, with some exceptions, as I say, if we're preempted by other stuff that's out of my control. And there's no end to it, because then you learn about the great rabbis, the great scholars, the prophets, the debates, and it goes on and on and on, and that's fine. And it's very interesting. And that's the nature of Judaism. But it also is the nature of current events. Because as I've explained to my radio listeners last week and this week, why are the Marxists and the Islamists together? And why is their number one hatred for the Jews? Marx hated Jews. Trotsky hated Jews. Obviously, Islamists hate Jews. In the 1930s, you had the Palestinian Communist Party. You also had the Palestinian fascists who threw in with Hitler and so forth and so on. And you see what's going on the college campuses. What is this all about? And so you dig into this, you read history, you apply what you know. What it's all about, if I may just sidestep this for a little bit, Judaism is about its history. You can't be a Jew if you don't understand at least the basics about Jewish history. The values, the morals, the so much that comes from that, which is why we always go back to the Torah, don't we? Which we always read from the Torah. If I'm a Marxist, why would I do that? I believe the world begins today. Obviously, I'm an Islamist. I want to destroy everything that's Jewish. Both of them want to destroy everything that's Jewish, because for Marxism, history is an evil. Well, Jewish belief systems are based on history. And we talk about history all the time. And we talk about the prophets all the time. And we talk about the disputes and so forth all the time. Islam is about conquering the world and imposing its ideology on everybody, starting with the Jews. Because if there weren't Jews, there wasn't Judaism, there wouldn't have been Jesus, there wouldn't have been Christianity. So the Jews are the seed of the problem. You destroy the Jews are first. Everything else follows. So you see this fusion of the Marxists and the Islamists. You see it within one, I'm not going to make this political, you guys may not like that. You see it in one particular party, let me put it that way. And it is a grave threat. You see this spreading throughout Europe with the Marxists and the socialists, which is what mostly Europe is, the Islamists throughout the Middle East, and now they've conquered much of Europe through immigration. I call this the Great Second Muslim Crusade, and I get attacked for this. From the left, of course. Well, then what is it? Massive migration into Europe, I mean, look at Sweden. Sweden's not Sweden anymore. Sweden's one of the most dangerous countries on the face of the earth. That only happened in the last 10 years. You look at this. So when people export their ideology, they export their culture, they export their bloodlust and their hate. And you have European countries in the United States who are not assimilating them into Western culture. They're not assimilating them into their own cultures, but instead we're assimilating into their cultures. That's why you see what's happening on college campuses and so forth. And that's why it's important to understand your history, because for the hardcore Marxist left, they don't want you to understand your history. They don't want you to have any history. They want a blank slate that they can indoctrinate and radicalize. That's a long way of answering your question.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much again for being with us. Your statement last week on Hannity has traveled across the globe and it's still being circulated. Everyone has never been prouder to hear such a strong statement. And I'm just wondering, as a student of history, and you just referenced the prophets, it's obviously something which no one knows the future, but we see that post October 7th, the Jews are in a place right now which we've never imagined we would be in, or maybe we did, but we just didn't think it would happen so soon. What is the future for the Jewish community in the United States?
First of all, that clip, I finish my radio show, and every now and then Hannity wants me to, like tonight, I'm going on Hannity. I don't ask, they ask. And while I was driving to the studio, which is about 10, 15 minutes away, I thought to myself, what would my father and mother want me to say? My father and mother would say, give them hell. Stand up, speak out. Because Mark, they were partial to me. Mark, if you don't, nobody else is going to do it. Do it. And I walked in here, sorry, rabbis, pissed off. Who the hell is this guy who thinks he's going to destroy Israel and destroy the Jewish people? Because if Israel embraces the positions of Biden and Blinken, it will commit suicide. And the people there will be eviscerated. As for your question, what does the future hold? Isn't that what you rabbis get asked all the time? I don't know, but I will say this. My answer to that is always something like this. People want me to predict what's going to happen in the election, what's going to happen to the Jewish people. I would say this. We've survived a lot. Not you and me, our ancestors have survived a lot. But I don't rest on that. That doesn't mean we'll survive today. And so I say this to Americanize your question. When George Washington was at Valley Forge, and it looked like the Revolutionary War would end right there, a horrific winter. You had men who were dying, men who had frostbite, they had diseases. The volunteers were abandoning the war. What would George Washington say? What does the future hold? You know what he would say? I don't have the foggiest idea, but we better damn well fight on, or we won't survive. What did Patton say when he was rushed to the Battle of the Bulge? When Hitler threw everything he had at the American and the British forces, the last great stand, and it was a massive battle. And he was racing to try and get there. What if somebody said to him, do you think you'll get there on time? You think you can beat these guys? What would Patton say? I don't have the foggiest idea. Get off your ass and do something about it. So in my non-rabbinic way, I would say to every red-blooded American, Jew or non-Jew, we have a lot of friends in the Christian community, a lot, and thank God we do. I would say this. There are times when you can be a wallflower. There are times when you want to be silent. This is not that time. We're not in the IDF. We're not putting our lives on the line directly. We're here in the United States of America. We Jews, we like to talk a lot. We like to debate a lot. In fact, when I'm around my fellow Jews, sometimes I have to walk away. It's nonstop, the debates. So why would we stop now? We need to confront our enemies. We need to talk to people who who are not understanding what's taking place, whether they're Jewish or not Jewish. We need to take a stand. We need people to explain how dire it is. The American people support Israel by 80%, whether the White House does or not, whether the Democrats in Congress do or not. The American people are a good people. The American people understand that there's so much in common with the Israeli people. There's so much in common with terms of our values. The nation was founded on Judeo-Christian values. Our nation, America. And so what's happening now is so diabolical, so evil. Whether it's the treatment of Israel right now, whether we have a president, it's the Holocaust Museum, which I consider, solemn land. Speaking about anti-Semitism for the first time, while he knows he just ordered the military not to deliver weapons to Israel to defeat Hamas. How contemptible and vile and cynical is that? But I call out the Republicans too. I don't care who they are. When a bill comes before Congress, a bill to help support our friends in Israel, and we get this green-eyed shade debate, well, what about the, offsetting, and what about this? What about? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And so it's very, very important that people speak out. And I want people to understand. It's also very satisfying. It's very satisfying to explain things, to vent if you need to vent, but to engage. Unfortunately, the people who want to destroy us, and let's make no mistake about it, they want to destroy us, the things that they're saying. It is very, very important that we confront this. They are thinking 24/7 about how to destroy us. Mm-hmm. We don't give it 2 minutes thought, those people. And if we lose America, we're going to lose Israel, and vice versa. I believe they're connected at the hip. I really do. Anyway, that's a long way to answer. I don't know the answer, but I'm not going quietly. That much I do know.
There's no question about that, and we're grateful in the platform that you have. I hope that you keep reiterating the message. It seems to me that there are a lot of people who are not anti-Semites per se, but they are engaged in the practice of anti-Semitism, maybe without even knowing it. And what I mean by that is the IHRA, the International Holocaust Remember Alliance, one of the definitions of anti-Semitism is, quote, applying the double standard by requiring of Israel a behavior not expected or demanded of any other democratic nation. And it's not being pointed out enough that even when this administration or others demand of Israel vis-a-vis civilian casualties, what they don't demand of themselves or anyone else in the world, that meets the definition of anti-Semitism. That's anti-Semitic, to be duplicitous or hypocritical or make a demand of Israel that's not made of anybody else. And how Israel prosecutes this war, being told how to do it in Rafah and elsewhere, and being told to risk their soldiers' lives to be able to save civilians on the other side, civilians in many cases who are actually accomplices or sympathetic or approve of the terrorist behavior, is the practice of anti-Semitism, even if it's not anti-Semites. But I know we have limited time. I want to ask you one other question about your career. You have an enormous platform. You reach enormous amounts of people, the radio, TV, and your books and elsewhere, as you mentioned. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came about? There are a lot of people with a lot of opinions, a lot of people with a lot of thoughts, a lot of people who think that they have a lot of truths and insights, and nobody wants to hear it, nobody listens. What do you think were the critical components and ingredients to the success of your career that others who are advocates, who are engaged in, as you said, speaking out and fighting this fight, what are some of the tools that we can use that would engage people and make them listen and be of influence, maybe not to reach 14 million people like you do, but at least to be able to reach many more? As you look back on your career, what do you attribute some of those successful ingredients?
A couple of things. My goal is to reach 40 million people. See, that's how I think. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. Let me address the first thing, then I'll get to the career issue. What you're saying is very, very important. Also here in the United States of America, do you think for a minute, if you substituted Jewish students with black students, that the reaction would be so mum from the White House, from the Justice Department, the Civil Rights Division, the Department of Education, Department of Homeland Security? Absolutely not. Do you think the reaction would be so mum in much or not if most of the media? No way. Do you think that they would send the U.S. Marshals down there to make sure those other kids could get into class? They did that in the 1950s and 60s. In fact, they sent the 82nd Airborne Division down to Arkansas. Eisenhower did to ensure that little black kids could go to school with little white kids. This administration didn't do a damn thing. Nothing. Anybody being prosecuted? If it is, it's the exception. Is the FBI cutting off the Qatar, Hamas money sources that are funding this? George Soros, they're not doing a damn thing. And so this is something that's very, very important. And I want to give you an example, and then I'll get to the career thing. Certain members of my family and I, we were down in South Florida. I forget the location. And there's a wonderful group that has a foundation, and the topic for the discussion was anti-Semitism and the Holocaust. And there were about 550 people there. My wife, Julie, was there. Alan West, who's a great patriot and supporter of Israel, was there. And Stuart Taylor, whose son was murdered. And the Taylor Force Act is named after his son, who was murdered by the Palestinians. He was a West Point graduate and an American veteran. And it was all well and good, but as soon as one of the panelists, who is more outspoken than I, she'd be my wife, as soon as she brought up the fact that this administration is not supporting the Jews in this country or overseas, and so I'd say about 50 of them got up noisily and walked out. That's the problem. When you put party and politics first, and family and faith second, that's the problem. And it is a big problem in parts of our community. It just is. As far as my career goes, I didn't sit around and plan a career. But on the other hand, when an opportunity presented itself, I didn't ignore it. And so I don't know when all this started. I used to listen to radio as a kid in New York, Bob Grant, people like that, on my little transistor radio that was next to my bed. I found it fascinating. I kind of always wanted to do talk radio. And then I moved on to other things, became a lawyer and all the rest of it. But during the 1990s, I appeared on one show. I think it was Firing a Line on CNN, debating an issue. As usual, it was like 3 against 1. Then I was finished. The producer said, "Oh my, you know what? Oh my goodness, you're very good at this." I said, "Oh, thank you." And I left, and they kept inviting me back. I said, "Okay." And I like 3 to 1 because 3 to 1 means I have more time. See, they have to split up among the 3 and I get more time, which is fine. And then other shows, Fox came to be and Hannity started inviting me on. And I followed Rush Limbaugh very closely, and I would send him constitutional things and so forth, just because I wanted it to be right. If we're going to say these things, I want to make sure that the megaphone, and he had the biggest, that we get our points out. I wasn't expecting anything. And then one day he calls me F. Lee Levin, his legal director. There you go. So I was F. Lee Levin. And then I was asked to sub for him here and there and sub for Hannity here and there. And one thing led to another. So it's not like I planned it all out. It's what I tell everybody, whether it's radio, TV, or a plumber or an engineer, whatever you want to be, do something, be somewhere, be busy. And when opportunities open the door, don't be afraid to go in. There is no grand plan. You cannot possibly know where your life's going to end up.
Having the truth on your side was super convenient, but what do you think made you successful in those debates, and what made them invite you back and ultimately have this success? Do you prepare more than anyone else? Are your strategies, your talking points, what makes you more persuasive or compelling? Help us become better spokespeople ourselves to help get our message across.
A couple of things. I tell people who ask me about radio, what's the answer? It doesn't work that way. I tell them, just be yourself. I once told Rush, Rush, there's you, then there's Hannity, and me. What the heck am I supposed to say? You know what he said? You're Mark Levin. Say what you need to say the way you need to say it. They've heard me, they've heard Hannity, they haven't heard from you yet. In other words, have self-respect, have self-confidence. Don't be cocky to the point where you're not going to inform yourself and educate yourself. I take pride in the fact that I do a tremendous amount of research, a tremendous amount of reading, but if I come on here like a bookworm or a nerd, or anyway, it's not going to work either. but I'm very compassionate and emotional too. So I can't really explain it. One person once said that I am a sort of a blue collar intellectual. I don't even know what that means, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't look in the mirror. I don't really break down, why am I successful? How should I be more successful? Sometimes you live life and you just keep driving forward. Sometimes you get on that hamster wheel. A lot of times it's the wrong thing to do, but you get on that hamster wheel and you do it. And I get on that hamster wheel and I do it. And so there's no easy answer, Rabbi.
Thank you for what you do. The great one, Mark
Wow.
Levin, thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for being such an articulate spokesperson.
Thank you.
May God bless you with good health, with strength, with the right words to continue to influence, make a difference. Let's get that 80% up to 99% or 100% of Americans realizing caring about Israel is about caring about themselves because of our shared values together. Looking forward to seeing you next time in South Florida with David, getting together, putting on those tefillin, studying and learning his shared history together. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you all, rabbis. God bless you. Amen.
Thank you.
Catch us next time for another peek behind the Bima.